All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 97 of the Hideout, our weekly spaces covering Web3 gaming and the Metaverse. It's crazy to think that we have been going at it for this long, and we are coming up on our 100th episode. Kind of crazy. But it's been an incredible journey, having a lot of fun every week doing this with you guys. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Nick Frontera. I am one of the founders and the CEO of Apollo Entertainment, the company behind Satoshiverse and our Legions 2029 game and this Hideout program. So definitely excited to be here and talk to you guys about the ever-changing world of Web3 gaming and the Metaverse. But we have a stacked panel again this week who is going to be joining us from all corners of the Metaverse. So very excited to have you guys on. What we will do today is we'll start out with some quick introductions. Tell us about yourselves, about the projects, and then we'll have Spencer take it away with the questions for the day. A couple housekeeping points. Feel free as you present and talk about your project to put up any kind of visuals or other, if you have gameplay or something illustrative, feel free to put that up and pin it to the top of the spaces. We definitely love to see that stuff. But you'll see right now you have our pin post, which is our featuring our game, Legions 2029. For those of you who don't know about Satoshiverse or may not be familiar with Legions 2029, we've been building for about 4 years now in the space, since 2020. We started off as a blockchain-themed comic collaboration with the infamous Jose Delbo, who was a former Marvel and DC comic artist for about 60 years, worked on everything from Transformers to Wonder Woman to the Beatles' Yellow Submarine comic book, and then at the ripe age of 88, worked with us to found one of the first Bitcoin superheroes. And the rest was history. For the last 2.5 years, we've been developing our game, Legions 2029. We have 2 avatar collections that are fully usable within the game. There are 3D avatars within the game, the Legionnaires and 8 Mil Army. The game itself is a very fast-paced PC game. It's a hack and slash game that you play through a story, and you lead the Legionnaires against the DOF, the Defenders of Fiat. Takes place in a dystopian world where Satoshi has returned to defeat the Uprising. And yeah, it's a very, very fun, exciting game. The cool part is it's free to play, so no downside. We've got a ton of integrations happening. We are currently on season 1. We've been at it for a few months now in season 1. We are going to probably be wrapping that up in the near future. We don't have a set date yet, but if you've been waiting on the sidelines, now's the time to get in. We'll be making more announcements on that in the coming weeks, but we are working on our season 2 build and prizes and tournaments. We've got USDC rewards. We've got, NFTs that you can earn in game. We have a free battle pass. The game is currently not being monetized in any way, so it truly is free to play. We're just gathering feedback and really just building with our community and trying to get as many people playing the game and giving feedback as possible. So check it out. It requires a gaming PC to play. So if you play other high fidelity games, this is a game that you will probably like and be able to play. You can find all the information on how to download it in the pinned tweet, but that will be it for now for me on Legions and what we're building. Let's kick it over to our friends at Call of the Void. Welcome to the spaces. Tell us about the project. Tell us about what you're building.
Hey, thank you for the invite. I am Matt behind the account of Call of the Void. I'm the CEO of Mystic Games. Our first game, Call of the Void, is out now on iOS and Android. We are a top-down ARPG shooter game with a play-to-earn mechanic, and we've been live up to 200,000 players, one of the top 10 games in Immutable. We're also building, this is the first of our ecosystem of many games powered by the V token. We've got some really exciting news coming up about merging with some other games and studios. And I'm also in that vein, chief commercial officer of WarpDAO, which is essentially an L1 plus publisher gaming chain that is going to be rocking the space. And nearly 200 games lined up to go through the program. Essentially, we're going to be empowering games to actually make the best decisions in Web3 and not get drained by SaaS companies and greedy CEXs. So yeah, that's what we're on at the moment. Packed panel love this space.
I love it. Well, again, welcome on. Very glad to have your perspective. I've been a fan of what you guys are building, so definitely interested to hear the updates and see everything that you guys have going on. Let's jump over to Lucky Cat.
Hey guys, how you doing? My name is Rule. I'm from Lucky Cat. We are a gaming studio that have been building games for about 10 years now. So we started off first building hyper casual games on mobile, and then about 3 years ago we switched to Web3. Our first game that we launched is called Panzer Dogs, which is a PvP tank brawler. We launched that in 2021 on Solana. And then last year in May, we launched our second Web3 game called Cosmocadia, which is a cozy, colorful community farming game launched on Sui. So we have now these two Web3 games out. We're now in the lead up to our ecosystem token launch, and we have some new exciting products launching, such as a mini game that's an alpha right there that is coming quite soon as well, and some other exciting things. So yeah, happy to jump in it further, and excited for today's space, and thanks for having me.
I love it. Well, welcome to the spaces, and yep, definitely excited to dive in. If you have any kind of gameplay footage or anything, feel free to share it at the top, and we'll dive into the questions. Let's go over to Rogues. Welcome to the spaces.
Hey guys, hi. Great to be here and meet everyone. My name is Anna and I'm co-founder and CEO of Rogues, which is a gaming studio created by gaming industry veterans, that is delivering, our flagship game called World of Rogues, which is an infinite post-apocalyptic social survival MMORPG with a player-driven economy and digital ownership. So we have been around for a couple of years, and we have been building for the past couple of years, like some of the speakers here. And you can see our gameplay in the tweets that I just pinned in this space. But in short, the features that we have in our game are very, very cool features: crafting, resource gathering, fishing, PvE. Of course, it's all multiplayer, so players can go questing on their own or with their friends. I'm looking forward to telling you more, of course. In terms of the avatars and the chains that we have been building on, we launched on Polygon, and the game is integrated with Polygon in Near. We are looking into getting into more chains as well, so that's something that we'll be announcing soon. Also we have the Genesis collection of boxes. You can see my avatar there in the audience. That is our Genesis collection, and a couple of other secondary collections that we sold out. Great to be here and excited about this space.
Amazing. Well, great to have you on. And as always, just excited to learn more. I know we're going to dive into some interesting questions very soon. Let's jump over to Sakuru.
Hello guys. Yeah, thank you for the invitation. I'm Marius, or you can call me Silo by my nickname, official online nickname. I'm a partner and VP of Web3 at Sakura Labs. And Sakura Labs is a proud Sakura protocol provider, operator, and at the same time a game publisher, which helps like onboarding loads of different games from Web2 to Web3, including like consultation services and other valuable services. So yeah, glad to be here. Looking forward to talk more.
Amazing. Well, I know you'll bring a different perspective to the space as a protocol and working with other builders. So definitely excited to have you on. Last but certainly not least, let's kick it over to Spencer to do some housekeeping items and get us started.
Thank you, Nick. What's going on, everyone? My name is Spencer Vogel. I'm the business development manager here with Satoshiverse and Apollo Entertainment. Um, Joining you today on the Hideout account. If you're not already giving the Hideout account that I'm on right now a follow, definitely do that. We're trying to build up the brand for these spaces, and we've been doing this for 97 episodes, so we're really excited to be able to continue to share these with all y'all. So right before we jump into questions, I'm going to pin a tweet to the top of the space. So that tweet that just says, "We are live," that is for a giveaway that we run every single week on these spaces. So we're giving away 5 Satoshi's crystals, which is one of our main in-game resources within the Satoshiverse. Allows you to be able to upgrade your items and your avatars. So definitely something you want when playing the game. In order to win those 5 Satoshi's crystals, all you have to do is repost that tweet that is pinned to the top that says "We're live," and then just stick around until the end of the space when we choose a winner. Really easy. Definitely get involved. So moving on to the agenda and how things are going to work for the space. So we're going to start out with.
Uh-oh, looks like we may have lost Spencer. Maybe I have lost him. Is everybody else hearing okay? Or I think I lost his voice.
No, we all
No,
lost them.
actually not.
Oh shoot. Okay, let's try it. We'll get him off stage. We'll bring him back on because yeah, it sounds like the typical Twitter rug. So we'll give it a second. So I think what he was going to say. I think I've heard it enough times that I could say it myself. Is that we are going to be running through a group of questions. The first of which will be a question for everyone, in which we'll call on someone to start, and then we'll be able to. Anyone else can then jump in freely. The idea there is just to spread some thoughts and good vibes and kind of talk about some of the issues in the space. And then we'll jump into some individual questions that kind of touch on the different areas of expertise that each member of the panel has. And then we will, I think Spencer mentioned the giveaway. We'll have the giveaway at the end of the spaces for those of you who retweet the post that Spencer posts at the top. So you got to retweet it. And then at the end of the spaces, we'll select a winner of 5 Satoshi's crystals, which is our key resource in the Satoshiverse and in our Legions 2029 game. So I think I did it justice, Spencer. If you want, you can just take it away with the questions.
That sounds good to me. Yeah, apologies. I have like the time limit set up on my social app so that I don't spend too much time on socials and I can be focused. And sometimes when that kicks off when you're on the spaces, then it screws with everything. So I'm back. We're good. So yeah, we're gonna do the first group question, and like I'm assuming Nick said, feel free to just jump in to the question. No need to raise your hands or anything like that. And maybe Call of the Void. Maybe you could start us off on this one. In your opinion, what is the biggest opportunity that Web3 brings to the gaming space, and what is the biggest barrier to mainstream adoption of Web3 in gaming?
Yeah, so I think the reason we got into games with Mystic is I think the biggest opportunity that it brings to the gaming space in mobile specifically is the ability to create a long-lasting community based on the idea that everything in it becomes like permanent or interoperable between games. I mean, there are so many games like the football games and all the rest that just bring out a new game every year. And you lose all your progress. There are so many sort of like Clash Royale and Clash of Clans. Like there's no need for ecosystems of games with similar themes and all the rest of it to not work together. And I think this is one of the biggest opportunities is it allows you to create, long lasting legacies like games like RuneScape, like some of the original things in there, like party hats, just make you look a little silly, but they have some of the largest value. People actually use them and trade them for money and all the rest of it. And to me, the biggest opportunity of Web3 is not about making money per se as an industry. I don't think it actually makes more money. If anything, it's a net cost, because there's all of the things that you sort of give out. But I think if you can be a fairer game and you can be a better game, that allows people to essentially own what they win, and enjoy the process of doing this and be part of something bigger. And then they actually take home the currency. It's not immediately gone once you buy it. It's not lost forever. And then actually to be part of this game, and then that game becomes part of your life and gives you the opportunity sometimes to win maybe life-changing money without gambling. I think that is something that can really work. I think the ability to award people and gift people, offsetting the UA costs. I mean, if you just gave out money to every third person and then didn't do UA, I'm pretty sure that's one way of getting a lot of people to hear about your game. So far, it hasn't worked in this tiny ass space where everyone wants to be paid like a neurosurgeon just for turning up to a beta. And we definitely need more and better games. I think the biggest thing that's keeping us from mass adoption is the quality of the products. And I'm going to say that it is getting better. But one of the things that we've seen is essentially the bear market, the funding dried up for individual studios, whereas protocols, ecosystems, SaaS projects, and all the rest of them, they were eating good. And the problem is if you essentially are doing the whole investment strategy of sell picks and shovels in a gold rush, if there are no miners and they have all starved to death, then you're not going to sell any picks and shovels to anyone. I was selling yet another marketplace today. I've probably been offered about 46 white label marketplaces in the last 2 years. And the problem is that as the games die out, the SaaS companies get more predatory, the agencies get more predatory, the KOLs and the UA goes up because we're all fighting over a smaller and smaller slice of this. And that the end result is the development of the game suffers. And because the development of the game suffers because people are spending half their pre-seed raise on a listing, then we end up with worse quality games, and it's very obvious. Part of it is because some of the teams that made money and took money in 21, they have no experience in games. They've been gamers all their lives, but yeah, then again, I eat all my life. I am not a Michelin star chef. And one of the things that this has done is it's encouraged these guys to have a moat. So the ones that raised money, and we all know in our heart of hearts are absolutely terrible games, continue to raise money. The ones that would have probably had a better chance have not done that. So we're in a really weird situation where only a few games have actually had a chance to break through, because basically games that are doomed to fail are still being propped up and zombieing it through the space. And they're the ones that can afford KOLs and all the rest of it until it all goes horribly wrong. And I've seen some lovely people making very big AAA sounding games that have all of a sudden dropped off the radar and started losing people. And they used to be the talk of the town. So I just like to say that it's too expensive, and that's probably our fault. The products aren't good enough. And that's also probably the fault of the people who invested them, because they should have picked people who worked in games. Mic drop.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'll jump in. I actually want to kind of touch on some of those points. I think that you're right? Like I do think that, I guess I'll start with the opportunity, and to answer the question. I think for me the opportunity is very similar to what you said, and it's the kind of the cliche term that we throw around, but really is I think the value prop of Web3, at least the core, and that's ownership. And I think when we think about and break down what ownership actually means, we start to, dial into some of the points that were just made and some others about what does it mean for something to be owned. Well, it means it's going to persist. It means you're going to have downstream rights to sell it, to use it, to display it. It means that there's going to be a certain degree of interoperability within an ecosystem and outside of an ecosystem. It may or may not mean that you'll have some rights to the IP itself. There's a lot of things that when we think about ownership, for example, of physical items, that before Web3 weren't really possible with digital items. And I think at its core, Web3 creates the ability to own in a more realistic way digital items. And I think that's going to be important for games and kind of the digital economy as we move forward. And, as AI gets more developed, as AR and VR get more developed, and as digital becomes more and more part of our world, and games aren't necessarily, this idea of I have to sit down at a computer and play something for 6 hours, but games could be a trip to the mall where I'm going to different stores and that's somehow gamified and I'm getting some, reward for that, which gives me a discount for, 3 days or 5 days that can then be transferred. Or, there's a million other things. It could be I'm going to this store and I'm getting a digital hat for free for my avatar that I can use in X, Y, and Z metaverse. I mean, one could imagine tons of different places where ownership of digital assets in the future will tie in to a gamified experience. I think that on the challenges, I really do agree with the core of what you're saying. I think that we won't have mainstream adoption until we see really well thought out games integrating Web3 on the back end. And in my mind, there's kind of two different buckets of what I would consider successful Web3 games right now that may not result in ultimate success for the gaming project. They may go out of business, but they still to some extent are successful. And I think that the work we're doing right now as an industry is a lot of experimentation. We are trying to think about ways to use Web3 in a meaningful way to enhance the gaming experience. We are finding lots of things that don't work, a la kind of this play to earn, messaging and everything we saw in 2021. And then we're starting to find things that do work. We have some new genres emerging out of Web3 where you have, kill to win type of things where, you can all stake money into a pool and then that pool is distributed by a smart contract. We're seeing greater degrees of fairness using oracles for gambling games. We're seeing the beginnings of player economies and item ownership, although that takes very developed games to really put forward. But I guess, I have a similar view on kind of how the space has moved forward and why we've had challenges in terms of funding. But I really think that, and I think this was kind of to your point, that part of the problem with the Web3 space is that a lot of the funding has gone towards that experimentation that may ultimately result in a better space as a whole, but may not result in, early results and mainstream adoption right away. My thesis for how we see mainstream adoption and our biggest challenge is tied to that is actually not necessarily smaller indie studios that, are sprung up to make Web3 game, although I think they play a core role in taking risk and inventing new genres and building the foundation for what will eventually be the way Web3 is integrated in gaming. I think the core of Web3 gaming is going to come from game studios, right? Studios that have discovered a business model where Web3 adds value to a particular genre of their gaming experience, and thus they're incentivized to incorporate Web3 into these gaming experiences. We're talking AAA studios, we're talking AA studios, but studios that are working with publishers, studios that have the funding and the on-ramp and the experience to deploy a game and have the relationships with the KOLs and are able to bring the game to market and are able to fund 3 to 4 years of development with a game that's going to incorporate Web3. And so for me, the biggest challenge that we have is building that ecosystem, building the infrastructure and really building the business model that convinces AA and AAA studios, hey, you can add value through Web3. Web3 doesn't need to be an all or nothing approach, which is what it's been for a while, where, if I'm a game developer and I'm making a game, all of a sudden I put, NFTs into that game. And now it's like I'm in the Wild West, right? Because people can go to OpenSea. People can go to Blur, they can go to Looksrare, they can go wherever they want, different marketplaces, different ecosystems. All of them are going to have their own fee structures. Some are going to pay on downstream sales. Some aren't. Some are going to have like hacks and different things. And there's only so much you can do as a game developer to control the aspects of the core product that you're releasing. And so, we've seen marketplaces, real money marketplaces exist in Web2 games. I think part of the challenge is aligning Web3 to an extent, and it sounds weird, but centralizing it a little bit more, giving web developer options, right? Game developers, sorry, options, so that they can integrate Web3 without completely disrupting their business model. And I think that's our biggest challenge. I think once we solve that challenge, we're going to start seeing some of the more quality games really hitting the market in Web3, because the biggest and most experienced players are going to need to be part of it in order for it to succeed, I believe. Silo, I saw you had your hand up there. You wanna jump in?
Yeah, I actually tapped into some of these things on the go, so I put my hand down. But like, if you give me a chance to add up a little bit here, maybe it will be controversial from the like protocol perspective, but like blockchain is just really poorly indexed, very expensive database if you don't know how to use it correctly. So I think exactly some of the points you emphasized is that we need to research on the ways to put it in a use to make it effective for the games. And that can happen only through the exploration. Like a lot of games came to the space basically chasing money because it was much easier to raise $2, $3, $5, $10 million. But and when they're building games and they actually don't know what to do with their token. And this is how market actually reflects as well in a way. And eventually everybody is like trying models, like showing ads and then like giving out some like tokens to people, but that is like not sustainable, and also not effective in a tier 1 countries. It's probably much more effective to just do like tapping games, which we see on the rise right now. Like people are doing like tapping games and then monetizing basic attention, like the people just like clicking ads on the screen. And that is just like a dumbest business model, but it works for now. And it's actually, these games are beating like higher quality games at the moment by the user base in Web3, which is a super weird thing. That's why we kind of need to explore and invent actually the new models, how the blockchain is used for gaming. Like, yeah, so that's the point. I just wanted to expand a little bit on that.
Go ahead, Rogues, and anyone else, feel free to jump in. You don't have to raise your hand. Rogues?
Yeah, just following on Silo, I also posted a really interesting article, which is quite technical, but you can see it in this thread for the space, about really the more technical use of blockchain in gaming. I'm actually often asked when I go to spaces outside of Web3 gaming, for example, when I meet Web2 gaming studios, of course, they always challenge me, or not always, but often challenge me and say, can't this be done without the use of the blockchain, right? Things like digital assets. Of course, in MMORPGs, we know that the game economies are quite complex. And I always talk about the utility, right? The NFTs, the need for digital ownership, which I think is really strong. But there's some valid points there that Silo brought in. I think certainly there is two elements here, right? There is the utility of the blockchain, and there is the speculation and hype that has historically been part of Web3 gaming. And let's be honest, it has been. I think going forward to me, I think blockchain is an absolute part of gaming, and it's around the back end, the infrastructure that it can provide for especially bigger games like MMORPGs and other games of this sort that require solid foundations, right? So to be more technical, there's some elements that blockchain can help in Web3 games. So in that article that I shared, they talk about the modding aspect, where you have the ability for players to be creators as well. So in this way, there is more transparency when it comes to on-chain games, games written. And Silo, I love that you're 100% there. Definitely, this is something that blockchains really love, right? So it's really the functionality of the blockchain for gaming, besides speculation or pure game economy or tokens or anything like that. So I think for me, we're getting there, right? We're not 100% there, but certain chains are really developing and they're really advancing by the day and really providing, of course, gasless is the norm now, right? It used to be the exception 2 years ago when we first started on Polygon, and it was like, well, why not Ethereum, right? It was just, it was just laughable that people were paying so much for gas, and now it's the norm. But I think as I've been in the industry for the last couple of years, I have seen a lot of chains emerge, and everyone is almost better than the previous one, right? I don't want to name because I'm not maxi on any chain, but we can really see this progression. We are getting towards decentralization. We are getting towards transparency, which are some idealistic reasons that I joined the Web3 space. I don't think we're quite there yet. And of course, sometimes we go one step forward, 2 steps backwards. For example, yes, we promise that, everyone will be a creator. Everyone will be able to benefit. And we have seen, that it's not always the case, especially when it comes to things like funding. Satoshi Verse, you mentioned a lot about funding of studios and all of that. I think I probably would quite disagree with you there, although I think I agree as well. You said that it's not necessarily the indie gaming studios that are going to make it, but essentially studios are finding that product market fit. At least that's how I interpreted what you said there, right? So I agree with that. I think you really need to find the need for the blockchain, the need for, game that not only people have fun with. Of course, they have to enjoy. It has to be sticky, but also there needs to be a good economy that survives for the long term as well. I think you're right there. I think that's what's needed for the future. But at the same time, I don't think that throwing money at the problem solves it, right? And I think so perhaps going forward, there will be a mix of maybe a smaller teams and a larger teams. But ultimately, it will be teams that can really deliver value to the end users. And yeah, I think the second part of your question was around what didn't go so well, right? And what we dislike about Web3 gaming. And I think I'm sure a lot of us here agree that everything is not roses, right? So when we remove our rose-tinted glasses, we see that that's speculation, right? There is a lot around, lower quality of gaming experiences that we're seeing. But I think overall we're heading in the right direction, which is something that we've seen more and more in the last few months with certain titles, breaking outside of Web3 gaming and really proving, to the wider world that, the Web3 games are not shit, that there is potential there. It's happening. We're getting there, I think.
Yeah, I will just quickly add up. So the sad part is that so much resources are actually wasted on bad things because of speculations. So if you would be moving towards direction which you all agree that we need to go to, and instead of a lot of companies, they just throw money into liquidity, even games and products, they don't even need the tokens and they can be achieved with these things. We throw a bunch of resources because of speculations out, and we become more super, super slow as a industry, in my opinion.
I love it.
We
I love it.
can move back to this question. I just want to give Roel a chance to answer his individual question real quick because he has to jump in a few minutes for another call. But then we can totally circle back to this right after that. Apologies for jumping in there, but Roel, so why do you think mobile is particularly a good fit for Web3 gaming, especially considering you guys have built a lot of mobile games?
Very good question. So, I think that, right, we have kind of an onboarding problem, right? That's also what has been discussed a little bit earlier on in the space here as well, right? We touched upon some points, and the easiest way to onboard the mass amount of gamers with the least friction possible, I think, is going to be gaming, right? So, what we are, for example, doing with our two games that are both on PC and mobile, with Panzer and Cosmocadia, we're making it very frictionless. We have a smooth onboarding process, right? So you can, for example, do things with automatic wallet creation. We don't use crypto slang in our games, right? So you just have NFT assets that are in-game assets, right? We don't really bother our gamers with NFT or crypto terminology. And we're now also thinking about, for example, when we launch a token, you have in-game staking, so they can earn APR on their tokens. So this is basically with a DeFi integration, but it's all happening in the game, right? And also, for example, if you have things like NFT trading, you ideally want to keep it in the game, so that you can, again, seamlessly onboard those Web2 players. And by doing it through mobile, you already have this huge distribution platform, which makes it much easier for them to check it out, right? So, for example, we have been always been focusing on hyper casual games, and this is, of course, right, the easiest way to get people to download the game very quickly, right? So hyper casual games, of course, have a lower life cycle, right? So it's maybe just a few months. This game can be scaled up to millions of players, right? Our overall portfolio is 250 million downloads. So our two Web3 games now are not hyper casual; they're more of a hybrid casual type of game. But you still have that very low barrier of people that can just go to the App Store. It's a free to play game. Click on the download button, and they can, play a short game whenever they want, right? Like it's very casual, easy onboarding experience, and then I think that's a very good step to slowly introduce millions and millions of gamers to Web3 gaming by not necessarily bothering them too much with all of this crypto terminology and the technology itself, right? So they don't necessarily have to notice that they're using the blockchain.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I think you hit the nail on the head there with the value prop of mobile is how accessible it is, right? And I think that's not necessarily to say that any other means of games or any other type of game is necessarily less valuable to the space or whatnot. I actually think that we're going to get to a time where high fidelity gaming is something where Web3 is highly integrated because there's so much money and value that is spent on high fidelity gaming, on things like skins and all that. But that day has not come, right? Like the challenges with blockchain and integrating and onboarding in a high fidelity game are significantly higher right now, given that the distributors haven't fully, you don't have full Epic Game support, you don't have any Steam support, PlayStation, Xbox aren't fully on board yet. So I think the value of mobile is like browser, it's so much more seamless, but a lot of times it's more powerful than a browser, and you can create better experiences. Go ahead. Sorry, I see you have your hand up.
Yeah, just wanted to add one more final point before I need to hop off. There is, of course, also at the moment at least a downside of launching games on mobile when it comes to crypto because of the App Store policies, right? So of course, like it's very difficult to do in-game transactions with crypto. It's also right, of course, Apple Store takes 30%. So if you launch, specifically a token, and you only have a mobile game, you have to go through a lot of loopholes to still be able to launch on the App Store. So that's why we have an assisting game, let's say, on browser, right? So with, for example, Panzerdogs, we have basically the two games are identical, right? So on PC and mobile, right? So you can choose to go on PC, on mobile, whether you want to play it. But if you want to connect your wallet, you always have to do them on PC. With Cosmocadia, with our more cozy farming game. There we kind of will use it as a sales, well, not sales, as a funnel to onboard a lot of Web2 gamers into more casual, streamlined type of game. And then by onboarding them through mobile, if they want to explore more of their earned in-game assets and go to the open world and use all those earned assets in a more casual game, then they can go play the more open world game on PC, right? So there are different ways to approach this, but at least at the time, you do have to work around the App Store policy. So that's still a sticking point, I would say, with mobile. However, if you are now building on mobile and building that community and getting those Web2 players into Web3 game this way, whenever those policies around crypto in the App Store would change, then you're ready to basically launch your game fully on mobile, right? And then you're fully prepared, right? So that's also a thing to keep in mind. I think that at some point, inevitably, these App Store policies will become much more crypto friendly, but we just need to see probably some things changing on the regulation side, and also just way more better games and more frictionless experiences until we have seen those changes in the App Store.
Awesome. Well, really appreciate you joining us, and I know you got to get out of here, but let's move the discussion along to more individual questions here. And the first one, let's go to Rogues. So how do you think AI can be used to enhance player experience in Web3 games?
Yeah, great question. So I think we have been at it for a while in terms of a topic, right? At least a year since AI started to come really to the mainstream. So there are multiple ways in which AI can help in that aspect. So first, from the perspective of the game creation, right? And I know you asked about the players, but the two are linked together. And so from the perspective of the game creation, there is multiple optimizations that AI can help. For example, things like asset creations, NPCs, storylines, creating infinite scenarios in which something that for a studio to do, it will take extreme amount of resources, right? With AI now, the possibilities are becoming more and more that players can have like an infinite and unique experience that is way more and way bigger and way larger than if a studio had to create this manually. So we're talking about, of course, if it's a 3D world, it could be an infinite 3D world, right? But I think the same can be achieved even if it's a 2D world. I think there is a lot of talk about are AIs really going to replace humans when it comes to creation? Are they really going to replace the studios, the artists, the game designers working in the studio? And my personal view is that the truth is in the middle, right? I don't think that there will be a complete replacement of all humans. I think there is definitely innovation that can will happen still with the help of people. But I think a lot, what it really does is it opens the possibilities of smaller teams, and just, smaller talented people, right? To smaller teams with a lot of talented people to create, much more interesting, bigger games, right? So then the barrier to entry is no longer how big is your team, how much resources do you have, but it's more like, can you really work with the technology available to create an interesting experience? And I think this really follows on what I wanted to say earlier about resources and innovation. I know, Satoshi, you talked about resources and the fact that if you have more resources, you'll be able to create, the best game ever and the really, and there is an element of truth. I agree. But also I'm really passionate, about the element of innovation. It's no longer just enough to repeat a great game, on Web2. and create a copy that is equally better and just a copy of it on Web3 with digital ownership. I think there needs to be an extra layer of adding uniqueness, adding something that is different and fascinating and sticky and capturing the imagination of the players to make it a success. And I think this is what bothers me from time to time in Web3, if I've got to be honest, is that we see a lot of repetition. Say, oh, I'm going to create the next PUBG, but it's going to have NFTs. Well, it may work, but it may not work, right? It's no longer just enough to repeat what's been out there. You have to try and find new characters, new storylines, new twist on the game mechanics to really create something that the players have never seen before and love. And I think this is really one of our mission at Rogues is to do this. Our characters and our IP, we're really proud of that. We're purposefully 2D. We're not pixel, so it's very much hand-drawn art. So, which is funny, after all, I talked about AI, right? Because we're planning to integrate AI with the 2D art as well. It is possible. But essentially there is a lot of opportunities to innovate and add, authenticity while using AI. And I think really communities and players really love that. They love that unique touch. But if you can scale that, 10x, 100x, 1000x, a million x with the help of AI, why not, right? Offer to your players more experiences that they love. And I think that's the key to success.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more there. I mean, I think that the point, well, there's a couple points there, right? By AI allowing teams to get smaller and then combining that with some of the community funding models that we see in Web3, right? Where we see projects raising via a token or raising funds via an NFT project directly through their community. So not only, providing funding, but also getting like really interested stakeholders in the project itself. Those project founders are in a much better place to take the sort of risks that will lead to innovation than a company that has to run every single decision by a board of directors of detached people who are looking at, $100 million a year game revenue budget that they would be disrupting with Web3, right? So we are all, I think, as founders in a much better position to take risk and experiment and kind of hit those new use cases that will eventually then be copied by the AAA studios as they become successful. And I think that was probably where I was going most with when I was originally talking about it, is that you're always going to have these giant giant AAA studios with all the resources in the world, and they're going to have their use cases, and they're going to be able to use the technology in ways that we never even thought possible, a lot of times because they have access sometimes to different technology and just different skill sets than some smaller teams do. But on the other hand, as AI comes in, as community-based funding comes in, we're going to be able to iterate and do different things and experiment with IPs, with new game genres, even using Web3, and I think that that's eventually going to lead to a much better space. I guess the point when I was thinking about it is that one of the reasons we've seen a lot of failure is because there's a lot of experimentation, and I think sometimes experimentations fail, right? And experiments fail, and sometimes those experiments are very costly. And so when we're thinking about some of the bigger projects in the space that took in tens, if not hundreds of millions in funding and have either yet to release a game or released something that was subpar, I think a lot of times is because they weren't necessarily spending that money to create the greatest revenue producing game that was going to be mass adopted. They were spending that money to experiment, and a lot of those experiments didn't work, right? And so I think we're kind of where we are now. I think we're in a better place than we were in 2021, 2022, 2023. And I guess to your point about AI, I think AI is only going to make that, more powerful. I just think that if you have AI allows you to have a one-person team, for example. I think AI could also allow you to do great things with a 3 to 5 person team. If you have a 20-person team, great. You're going to be able to perform like a 100-person team used to. But those 100-person teams are still going to exist, and they're going to create things that are going to blow our minds using AI, right? Entire digital worlds, the metaverses of the future with, fully, like you were saying, AI characters with narratives and all these things and fully custom. And I actually think one of the more interesting uses of AI is going to be making games more personalized, right? Like the kind of algorithmic learning that we see on social media platforms being applied to gaming and using AI to drive narratives that are more tailored to your specific situation, where you could learn things through games, where you could have, emotional support through games, where it could know that you're going through a rough time and you have a character there that, the game changes depending on your circumstance. I'm just, throwing stuff off the top of my head. But I think we could see extremely concentrated game narratives that are adaptive based on the individual user and how they like to play the game. I mean, for me, for example, I played RuneScape, I played Diablo, I played all those MMORPGs, and all I did was get into the game and trade stuff with people. That was what I enjoyed, the economic part of the game. In theory, with AI, my gaming experience can be very, very different than someone who likes to be the miner or whatever it is and just grind, and very, very different than the person who's doing PvP matches all within the same game, right? Different enhancements, different focus, different narrative, different quests that I could tap into using the same game assets. So I do think we're going to see a lot more of that just based on play style and, who you are as a person. But I think that, the sky is the limit, and we're going to see AI amplify the pipelines of any size game studio.
It's like how I played PUBG. It's just hiding, nothing else. I just hide until I'm the last person standing. So AI is just gonna know exactly how I play it. Love it.
Exactly. Maybe it'll make the hiding spots more interesting, right? It'll put a little TV next to you, so while you're hiding, you can watch watch the TV or something.
Well, I'm going to move us on to the next individual question here. And just a reminder for anybody who might be joining us who missed the intro, we have a tweet pinned to the top of the space that says "We're live." We're going to be giving away 5 Satoshi's crystals, which is one of our main in-game resources within the Satoshiverse. All you have to do is repost that tweet that says "We're live" and then still be here at the end of the space when we call our winner. So our next individual question is going to go to Matt. So Call of the Void has its own governance token. So what do you think are some of the biggest advantages and disadvantages to Web3 enabled governance in games?
Well, this is a doozy, isn't it? I think one of the things that the main thing that we've always seen with governance tokens and the like is essentially your token has to be a governance token to have any value. It's got to be a governance token to have any value. This is the refrain from VC and being a gamer all my life, finance bros that suddenly had at their hands an entire team of people trying to make a game for them. Very little clue on to how to do it. So governance token, it really is about the success of the business and not about the success of the game. And why people think you can't link that into something that's also used in a game, I have no clue, because we managed to use dollars successfully to buy petrol and to buy votes. So I think it's pretty clear that if you have a currency that works throughout your ecosystem and your ecosystem is worth investing in, then you can use that currency to do certain types of governance. Now, I think the main issues with governance that we've seen is it tends to be just like real life. We, funnily enough, if you give a bunch of white tech bros a sort of a blank canvas to rewrite society, they tend to write something that looks much the same as society. Favors the rich white tech bro with more money than the other one. And therefore it doesn't really make for great governance, does it? The rich guy gets all the votes. It's a little bit too real, man. That's why we play games, to escape this literal hell that we somehow construct around us. But in a really interesting way, if you actually throw in some other measures of Web3 into how you can actually run a DAO, and you essentially have a path to decentralization that not only reflects the amount of decentralized votes you have as to the weight and the power of the decisions they can make. So, for example, if one guy's got all the money, maybe he can decide on the color of the button. But if the community of like 30,000 or 400,000 has a ton of tokens each, and it's not pulled into one person, maybe they have a bigger say, because then you actually get to aggregate the wisdom of the crowds. I mean, a lot of people just think governance tokens and DAOs are just there as some crazy ass tax break to avoid Gary Gensler from getting his little demon hands on you. But I think he's going to get his little demon hands on you, whatever you try, as long as you make enough money, and he's still around. But governance, the pros are, if you do it right, you can get the wisdoms of the crowd. You can actually make decisions that people generally want for your game, or potentially for which expansion to do, or which character to add, or potentially is this game studio worth investing in more? But at the very worst, it can become literally another sort of subset of the personality cult of Web3, where you have potential KOLs and influencers bargaining votes off each other's to make things better for them. And I think the problem is, if you couple governance, like we don't have staking with VToken at all at the moment. And one of the reasons for not giving out like passive earning outside of the games is because this does encourage bad behavior in voting. If you are trying to create a game economy with a token that runs in it, everything you do to extract people from the game or abstract that kind of a value chain away from your core business is essentially favoring people to sit at the sidelines and do nothing but try to optimize. We only have to see what blur farming did to NFTs. Like, absolutely, it's like every single NFT collection, bless their little cute faces, going into an angle grinder of value as people were farming tokens on that. And so this is not what we want. I mean, governance is something that is being practiced in, say, RuneScape or others. They've always had votes and community votes. When you're talking about fully decentralized autonomous organization, I don't know if it goes that far, but governance in terms of the games, in terms of updates, in terms of nerfs and balancing, I think the players themselves on a wide enough basis can actually make those decisions. And you not only have this decentralized aspect of it, you have the idea that you should actually qualify the success of the decision with other people who are not enfranchised. So, for example, if you make a decision to nerf a particular character in a shooter, and then the rest of the community who's outside the super elite guys are like, that's absolutely ridiculous, then you can downrate that version of the decision. And you can just algorithmically, or sort of by smart contract, even change the voting power for people who kind of made shitty decisions to require more successful votes to get more of a say. There's loads of things you can do to essentially automatically and slightly organically just take the best of the decisions and cut away some of the worst. So I think it's got to be a different from governance proposal 395. We need a cadre of whales to essentially vote that this guy is going to get more money, or that we're going to burn X, Y, and Z. That's just, it's ridiculous. We need to actually be making decisions that gamers want to make about the games that they love, and not taking them too far outside the game to do it. That's the one thing that we seem to love to do in Web3, is to remove people from the game at every possible opportunity, stick them in Discord and Telegram and all the rest of it. That's why Telegram games invented, because there's nothing to do in Web3 games. You're just sitting around in the community, like twiddling your thumbs, waiting for the next beta to come out, hoping they massage the transaction volume so you get a listing on CX, and then you can dump all your tokens. It's a terrible, terrible society, and we're going to change it.
Yeah, I know we have another question left to get to, so I'll just be brief on this one. But I do think that the core, DAOs are a really good example of some of the experimentation leading to maybe a better circumstance. I came in through Decentraland back in 2017, and that was one of the early iterations of DAO governance. And it had, and maybe still has to some extent, all of kind of the characteristics of some of the challenges that you were describing, right? That one token, one vote meant that many of the votes were either driven by team members or by really whales with huge token allocations that, of course, they purchased early on, either at the ICO or later on. And so we've started to see that models like that may not be the best fit. And we've started to think more about community governance and which decisions should maybe be like a one person, one vote, as we start to talk about how Web3 can be used to authenticate identities and ensure, a proof of humanness, right? Like for some of these new protocols that are coming out in the DePIN space and some of the others, how that could be integrated in so that we are having more fair voting on different things. But then, there's a place, I think, for one token, one vote. For example, you have community treasuries that are driven by DAOs, and it sometimes does make sense for the biggest stakeholders financially to be making financial decisions for how funds get allocated. So I think we've learned a lot from prior DAOs and prior iterations, albeit, very early ones in the space. And we now have a bit better models to look at than we did before, because I was all out on DAO governance in the early days, and now I've started to see more sustainable models pop up, and it's starting to work. But yeah, with a lot of the challenges that you brought up. All right, Spencer, back to you, just because I know we gotta get one more.
Yes. All right, so final question to Sakura. So which are the most important challenges that you believe L2s like Sakura are helping to address in the Web3 gaming space?
So I wouldn't say that all L2s are addressing and operating the same way as we do. I think we've managed to get most of our biggest games and biggest companies who launched on us and clients by operating as a game publisher itself, not as a layer 2 protocol, not as a protocol itself. So by nature, we are gasless, and within the next month will be the most scalable L2 overall on EVM ecosystem. But that doesn't make us great company. We are very efficient in technology. We have other things which helps games to integrate on chain faster, better, cheaper. But for the most of the games, we see that the core help we can supply is helping them to operate in a Web3 landscape. That's why a lot of Web2 game studios are coming to us to get not only the technical part, not only maybe a small relatively small investment from comparison what most of the protocols are given, but they're coming to get the know-how, how to operate in this space. So even from example, a token itself, I think I mentioned this already. Token, it's a product itself. It requires money for liquidity, money for marketing. If you are going NFT ways and if you want to NFT characters, you need to learn how to operate and how to make actually business out of it, how to integrate that into in-game economy, how to make all your in-game economics and your business models to work together, and also bind that into what is happening inside the overall Web3 ecosystem, follow the trends. So that's very difficult thing to do for a companies which haven't done it before. And my partners who have been operating in this space for a very, very long time. For example, my first startup, Web3 startup, which we launched in 2017, was acquired by Animoca. So the space was completely different back then, and it changes rapidly. So I loved a lot of things that, which were mentioned yesterday, about what companies need to look like, but, and what companies need to do, but not every company understands that. And also in a lot of times I see companies prioritizing wrong things. So for example, they're spending loads of effort on marketing, or shilling their token or resources instead of improving a gameplay and working on revenue model, working on tokenization and other things. So we are guiding them, helping them also to acquire funds for our ecosystem. We just recently established a foundation together with the Meme Corp for $10 million to invest into prominent revenue driven high quality games. It can be hyper casual games, or it can be realistic games. It really doesn't matter as long as the game has a good plan and they're willing to execute it. On a couple of other standpoints, so I think we figure out that play to earn doesn't work. So we guide every single client for us to go towards like value creation towards UGC, different tools. The AI was mentioned today, and like also how to empower the social media through the social scoring algorithms, through the social tracking and engagement algorithms. All these sort of things eventually combines to the one working model, and each product needs a separate working model. So this guidance which we provide to our customers, clients, or like companies who deploy and work with us, I think that's essential, and that solves like a major problem which we are facing for Web2 companies to go to Web3 now, because we just don't have this know-how.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And, you know, I'd love to continue talking about the infrastructure and see if there's ways that we can create value together. But let's, I guess, Spencer, we've got a winner to announce, don't we?
Indeed we do. The winner this week of 5 Satoshi's Crystals is Adam, or at grinder_Adam. Congratulations. In order to claim your prize, all you have to do is create a free account on go to game.legions2029.com, create a free account, and then send us a DM with your username, and we'll be able to drop that into your account. Congratulations, and I'll pass it back to Nick.
Amazing. Well, congratulations as well. All right. So what we'll do now is we'll just give everybody a minute or so to wrap up, tell everyone how to find you. For those, again, who weren't here earlier, we have a free-to-play game called Legions 2029 that we've had out for about a year now. We've been alpha testing it and getting feedback from our community. It's completely free-to-play PC game, lots of incentives. What I'll say is check out the pin tweet either at the top of the spaces or on our profile, and you'll be able to check it out. I'd also love to thank all of the speakers, for today. It was a wonderful conversation as always. So thank you so much for giving up a portion of your day to be here with us. Thank you to everyone who joined us live in the audience. It's always great to see faces out there, especially new ones, and to everybody who comes every week. A special thank you to you guys. I see you all there. I don't want to name you because I'm sure I'll miss one, but I definitely see some familiar faces, and trust us, it makes it even better every week when we do this to see you guys. So thank you, everyone. Please feel free to jump in with any outros and let people know how to find you, and then we will wrap up the spaces once I don't hear anyone talking anymore. Thank you.
If you don't mind, I can start because it's like 2 a.m. on my end, so I really want to go to sleep, honestly. So
go for it.
So yeah, thank you for the invitation. Really enjoyed the conversation. I think every question could have like at least 1 hour long talk here, and I love talking to you guys, like Anna, Nick, especially for every speaker here. I encourage you to actually reach out to me through the Twitter, and let's schedule a consultation call. Like, we do help games a lot. We help to build ecosystem, and we also we are chain agnostic. So if we see that our products and our services, because we do have like a lot of infrastructure built on top of the EVM ecosystem to build faster, better, and like cheaper for games, like integrate gamification, NFT rewards, all these sort of things. And also to reduce the cost of your infrastructure. But also we help games to acquire users like up to from 500,000 to like 1 million users. We can help you to acquire through our partners very cost efficiently. So yeah, schedule the consultations. For everyone else, follow Sacro Labs on Twitter, follow me on Twitter, and we keep posting loads of updates from our side. Thank you very much, and thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you.
Good night, guys.
Go get
I'm
some
jamming
rest.
off.
Go get some rest. Take care. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm happy to jump in next. because I've got a small kid that needs drying after the bath and putting to bed and reading some bedtime stories, and I promised I wouldn't miss it again for another space. It's been absolutely fantastic being up here with everyone. Thank you so much for having me and letting me rant, which is one of my favorite things. I've absolutely loved listening to so many informed speakers making so many awesome projects. And big up respect to the audience for this. You can find us, Call of the Void, follow us, download the game. And for Warp Down, follow the Warp Down account. It's really cool. And yeah, we are making GameFi great again, or whatever the latest fad of calling stuff is. But yeah, thank you so much. Big respect to all the speakers.
Thank you.
Awesome. Yeah, same from me, guys. Really huge pleasure to be here. And definitely the topics that we discussed today was super important and super thorough, right? We can talk so much more about each of those topics. But yeah, great to meet everyone. So just about Rogues and next actions. We do have a really exciting exclusive early access event on Wednesday. So if you're interested, check my pinned tweets, and you can join our Discord as well to check it out. It is only for holders and selected content creators. But if you ask me nicely, I might be able to let you in, guys. So yeah, check us out and yeah, join us for Alpha, and looking forward to hearing everyone again in another space soon. Thank you.
Amazing. Well, we'll definitely check back with you soon to have you back on, as we love to get updates. That goes for all the speakers. Thank you everyone so much again for being here, and we will wrap up now.